when the bottom shook as it does now, and the lone one had newly lost the Battle of the Trees. One wizard was injured by rockfall while they made the journey down through the gates of the sea, and when they began the singing proper, first the killer and then the blue lost control of their spells at crucial times. You know the moment, Ciri, when the mock battle breaks out among the three parties, and each one tries to force the others around to its way of thinking. Edrashtekaresket fell silent. The four of them swam on. Edrak... Nita stopped short, unable to remember the rest of his name as anything but the sound of gnashing teeth. "Look, can I call you Ed?" Blank eyes turned their attention toward her. "At least I can say it," she said. "And if I'm going to be singing with you, it can't be titles all the time. We have to know each other, you say." "A sprat's name," the shark said, dry-voiced. "A fry name. For me, the master." Then came the quiet, terrible laughter again. "Well enough. You're the sprat, and I'm Ed." He laughed again. Nita had never heard anything that sounded less like mirth in her life. "Great. So, Ed, what happened? In that song when it went wrong, was anyone hurt?" "Of the singers, no. They were inside a spell circle and protected. It has to be that way, else anything might get in among the singers and upset their spelling. But when the song failed, all the power its singers had tried to use to bind the lone one rebounded and freed him instead. The sea bottom for hundreds of miles about was terribly torn and changed as a result. Volcanoes, earthquakes. Also, there was a landmass, a great island in the middle of these waters. Surely you know about that country, since your people named the ocean after it. That island was drowned. There were humans on it. Millions of them died when the island sank. As for the rest, eating was good hereabouts for some time. The species of my mastery prospered." 130,000 moons ago," Kit whispered, one soft-breathed note of song. 10,000 years. "Atlantis," Nita said, not much louder. "Afalone," Ciri said, giving the name in the wizardly speech. "There were senior and master wizards there," she said sadly. "A great many of them. But even working together they couldn't stop what happened. The earthquakes begun by the downfall of Afalone were so terrible that they tore straight through the first level of the land under sea, the crust, I think the two-leggers call it, and right down to the mantle, the molten stuff beneath. The whole island plate on which Afalone stood was broken in pieces and pushed down into the lava of the mantle, utterly destroyed. The plates of your continent and that of Europe have since drifted together over the island's old location, covering its grave. But even after the downfall, there was trouble for years, mostly with the atmosphere because of all the ash the volcanoes spat into the air. It got cold, and whole species of land creatures died for lack of their food. It was thousands of moons before things were normal again. So we tend to be very careful about the song, lest the sea become the land, and the land become the sea." "And the Krokens are breeding," the Pale One said as they swam. "Well, I'm for the northern rips tonight. There's trouble in the water there." What kind of creature, Nita wondered, could hear the sounds of simple distress at a distance of 200 miles and more? "Beware, Nita," Ed said. "Only a dead shark could have avoided hearing that thought. If we're to know each other well, as you say you desire, best mind how you show me your feelings. Else I shall at last know you most intimately, sooner than you are planning, and the relationship will be rather one-sided." Ed's jaws worked. "I was going to say, Matters swimming as they do, I will see you three home. It's getting dark, and—" "Dark!" Nita and Kit looked around them. The water, turbid green-white when they had come here, was now almost black. "The sun's going down," Kit said unhappily. "We're really in for it now." Nita agreed. "Master Shark," she said, staying as calm as she could, "we have to get back to, our feeding grounds, and in a hurry. Our parents are waiting for us, and we had orders to be back before it got dark." Ed simply looked at Nita with that calm black stare. "As you say," he said, and began to swim faster. "But we will not be at Blue Haven before many stars are out, and the moon is about to set." "I know," Nita said. It was hard to sound unconcerned while her insides were churning. "Maybe you should go ahead and let them know we're okay," she said to Kit. "Tell them I'm coming." "No," Kit said, also at pains to sound calm. "I'll take my chances with you, Neats. All for one." "Sprat," Ed said to Nita, "this is an odd thing, that your sire and dam impose restrictions on you when you're doing a wizardry of such weight." "They don't know we're wizards," Kit said. Sri was so surprised by this that she backfinned to a dead stop in the water. Ed, as if nothing took him by surprise, merely circled about the group, while Kit and Nita coasted close by. "They don't know," Sri said. "How do you do anything? How do you prepare wizardries? Let alone the matter of singing the song without the full support of the people close to you, and when you're singing the Silent One's part, no less." There had been something about that last part in the manual. Nita had thought she had all the support she needed in Kit. She was becoming less sure. "Tom. Got to call Tom." "I know," she said out loud. "Sri, let's swim. We're late enough as it is." The four of them headed west again. "It can't be helped," Kit said. "It's not like it is here, where wizardry is something respectable and useful that most everybody knows about. Up on the land, they used to burn people for it. Nowadays, well, it's safer to hide what you're up to. People would think you were nuts if you tried to tell them you were a wizard. Most people don't believe in magic." "What do they believe in?" Sri said, unnerved. "Things," Nita said unhappily. "Sri, it's too complicated. But doing wizardry and keeping everybody from noticing is a problem." "I'm no wizard," Ed said, "but only a fool would try to deny a wizard's usefulness. It must be a crippled life your people live up there, without magic, without what can't be understood, only accepted." For all her concern about being late, Nita looked wryly sideways at Ed. This from someone who won't admit Time Heart exists unless he sees it himself? "Sprat," Ed said, "if it does in fact exist, can my not believing in it make the slightest difference? And as for understanding, I'm not interested in understanding Time Heart. What use is spending time figuring out, say, why water is wet? Will it make breathing it any— Where all—" The warning came so conversationally that it took Nita precious moments to realize what the problem was. The sea around them was dark to begin with, but in the black water, darker shapes were moving. One of them, writhing and growing, reached up dim arms at them. Nita let out a squeak of surprise, and the returning echoes hit her skin and told her, to her terror, what her eyes couldn't. A long, torpedo-shaped body, a great mass of arms that squirmed like snakes, and a long, wicked beak fang hidden at the bottom of them. She backfinned desperately as those writhing arms with all their hooked suckers reached for her. The sound that began rumbling through the water probably upset the Krakens as much as it did her. Nita had never heard the battle cry of an enraged sperm whale. A frightful scrape of sound, starting at the highest note a human being can hear, and scaling down with water-shaking roughness to the lowest note, then past it. It was hard to see what was going on, but Nita kept singing so her radar would tell her. She would have preferred not to. The echo sight of Kit in the whale sark, arrowing toward the leading kraken, jaws open, all his sharp teeth showing, was a horror. Suckered arms whipped around him, squeezing, and the giant squid had its own noise, a screech so high it sounded like fingernails being scraped on a blackboard. Before she really knew what she was doing, Nita circled off to pick up speed, and then swam straight toward the kraken's head ruffle, the thick place where the tentacles joined behind mouth and tooth. She sang for aim as she charged, then lost the song when she rammed the kraken. The squid's long, porous backbone crunched and broke under her blow. Rolling, tail lashing, she fluked away. All the telephone pole-length arms spasmed and squeezed Kit hard one last time, then fell away limp. Kit shot in toward the head of the broken squid. Jaws opened, crunched closed, opened again to slash once or twice with wild ferocity. Then Kit fluked powerfully, still singing, and arched away through the water. "Kit!" Nita cried, but his only answer was the sperm whale battle cry. The water was dark with night, thick with squid ink, and scratchy with stirred sand. Through it all, a pallid shape was cruising with terrible speed, jaws open, circling in. The patch of darkness he circled threw out a score of arms to grapple with him. Ed let them draw him closer to his prey, then bit, and blood and ink billowed everywhere in the frantic rush of water expelled by the shrieking squid. Severed chunks of kraken arms spun and swirled in the water and sank through it. Ed swept forward, jaws wide, and bit again. The shriek cut off. Out of the cloud of blood and ink, Ed came silently sailing, cool, untroubled, graceful. The pale slayer, a silent ghost looking calmly about him for his next victim. Nita held very still and sang not a note until he passed her by. Sri was ramming another kraken as Nita had, but one more closed on her from behind. Kit came swimming, singing his battle cry. He bit the second squid amidships, hanging on to that bullet-shaped body like a bulldog as its struggles shook him from side to side. Between her and Kit and Sri, Ed was circling a third kraken. It flailed at him, trying to bind his mouth shut so that it could get a better grip on him and squeeze him to death. It might as well not have bothered. As a fourth kraken came for her, Nita saw Ed break his circling pattern to dart in and slash, then curve away. Again and again he feinted, again and again his teeth tore, until the kraken was reduced to a tattered, screaming storm of blood and ink and flailing tentacles. Blank-eyed, Ed soared straight at the finned rear end of the doomed creature and opened his mouth. When his jaws scissored shut, all that was left to drift downward were the tips of several tentacles. The kraken had been about the size of a station wagon. A fifth kraken took a great suck of water into its internal jet propulsion system and thrust it out again, tainting the water with the sepia taste of ink as it fled into the depths, wailing like a lost soul. Nita was willing to let it go and was swimming for the surface when a chill current and a pale form sank past her, spiraling downward with deadly grace. The utter dark of the night sea swallowed Ed. She heard the kraken's screams, which had been diminishing, and now grew louder and more ragged, until they abruptly stopped. Wearily, Nita swam upward. She broached and blew gratefully, doing nothing for a long while but lie there in the wave-wash, gasping. Not too far away, Sri broached and made her way slowly toward Nita. Neither of them said anything, but the two of them sagged together and simply leaned against each other, taking comfort in the presence of another whale. Some yards off, the water rushed away from Kit's back and sides as he came up, gasping too. Nita looked over at him, shaking. She knew that what she saw was just her friend in a whale suit, but she kept seeing sharp teeth, slashing in a blood hunger too much like Ed's for comfort.